Welcome back to the channel. This will be the Best Defenders podcast for Fantasy Premier League ahead of the new season, with defensive contributions being a major factor that will also be taken into account when producing this list of the top 20 defenders overall, just like I did for the goalkeeper position. That video has already been published. I also delve into all the ins and outs about AFCON transfers, having more chips, and also the defensive contributions in my key changes to FPL video, so be sure to check that out if you haven't done so already. And there's plenty of content to look forward to, and I've already posted quite a few on my channel covering different elements of Fantasy Premier League. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's for FPL or UCL Fantasy, and videos and live streams will return for the Champions League very soon. Check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League and Spotify can also be found in the description. But without further ado, let's jump straight into it. At number 20, I've gone for Ezri Konsa, who comes in at 4.5 million once again, and his ownership is extremely template at 22.7%. He only scored twice last season and got no assists, but he got 10 bonus points in the process and delivered over 100 FPL points, so he was around the top 30 highest scoring defenders in FPL. But with defensive contributions, I think he can rise up the rankings and go up to an even better position. He's a very underrated player for Aston Villa and plays the vast majority of games for them, either as a centre-back or right-back. That versatility makes him even more nailed on in Unai Emery's setup, but it is Newcastle at home in Game Week 1, who could be without Alexander Isak, so that's a situation to monitor. But then it's Brentford away, Crystal Palace at home, and Everton away. I think Konsa is the best of a bad bunch to cover that Aston Villa defence. You've got Emi Martinez in goal, but he's suspended for Game Week 1 and heavily linked with a move away. And the other options in that defensive line, like Pau Torres, Mings, Maatsen, Luca Dean, I just don't think they're as nailed on as Konsa. You could make a case for Matty Cash on the right-hand side, but I just think Konsa will start week in, week out, and he's the best entry point in the Aston Villa defence, who have some of the best fixtures in the opening 8 game weeks. So I'd put Ezri Konsa quite high up in my list, of course, and that's why he makes it into the top 20. The same goes for Pedro Porro, who has the attacking potential, and I do expect him to improve from what he did last season. The same goes for Tottenham Hotspur as well. His ownership is at around 9.7%, so he was actually at double digits very recently, but some people were expecting him to be priced at 5 million. Even websites like FPL.team had that sort of prediction, and that would have been perfect, I think, and it would have made Porro quite template in my opinion. He scored twice last season, just like Ezri Konsa, but he also got 6 assists and 10 big chance created is nothing to be scoffed at for a defender. So 98 FPL points, just narrowly missing out on the 100 point mark. But Spurs have good opening fixtures for the first 12 game weeks, and that includes Burnley at home in Game Week 1. But the main problem with that, as I discussed recently, is that it takes place 3 days after the UEFA Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain. So expect some rotation to happen on that occasion, and then it's Man City away in Game Week 2. But I think the Spaniard will offer the bonus points, key passes, and constant threat from set pieces and open play. But there was a massive downgrade from the previous campaign compared to his debut Spurs season, where he was getting so many bonus points. But the changes to that BPS, the bonus point system, definitely hampered Pedro Porro. But I think what they've done this season with a few minor modifications to that system, that could actually help Porro once again be a solid FPL asset, and that's why he's also quite high up on this list. Lewis Hall was really impressive in the first half of last season, then he got that injury and he missed a few months actually, but with 7 assists and an expected assist figure of 3.73, I think Lewis Hall is solid, and Newcastle have different ways of covering that defensive line, but you might argue that Fabian Schär is the best of the lot. He also comes in at 5.5 million, so I would rank him higher than Lewis Hall personally, and he got 102 FPL points, but there was a period where Lewis Hall seemed to get returns in every single game. He's not going to get you too many goals, and of course, he didn't score a single Premier League goal last season, but its ownership is extremely low, and as a differential, I think he could be worth investment from Game Week 3 onwards, but I would avoid him against Aston Villa away and Liverpool at home. Those 2 opening fixtures are quite tough for Newcastle, and I don't expect a clean sheet there. Branthwaite is also a very good choice, with the defensive contributions now being a major factor. He would have scored 32 of those DEFCON points, if you want to call it that, and that would have brought his tally from 88 all the way through to 120. That would have been much better, And I think if he can stay fit for the vast majority of the season, he can get to 140, 150 points even, and he can score goals, even though he didn't do so in the previous campaign. He only got 1 assist, and his ownership is 2%. But Everton have appealing opening fixtures, particularly in the first 4, facing Leeds and Wolves away, and those home games aren't too shabby, particularly Brighton in Game Week 2. And Branthwaite will give you defensive contribution points, but Tarkowski is the standout in that Toffees defence. And you've also got Jordan Pickford between the sticks, and he's one of the best goalkeepers in Fantasy Premier League. Mykolenko does save you 0.5 million, so that's why he's ranked slightly higher than Branthwaite. I think they'll score a similar amount of points, and I think Mykolenko could be fairly underrated in terms of defensive contributions. He accumulated 9 bonus points last season with 1 goal and 3 fantasy assists, and his ownership is slightly higher at 4.9%, and I wouldn't actually be surprised if that doubled by the time we get to Game Week 1 in a couple of weeks' time. But I think Everton have different ways of covering that defensive line. Even Jake O'Brien could be extremely underrated, but the standouts would still be Mykolenko, Tarkowski, Branthwaite, and Jordan Pickford. Let's cover a different defence though in Aina and Nottingham Forest. He also comes in at 5 million, and his ownership is 17.3%. So a lot of people are quite invested in that Forest defence, and they want one of the best right backs from last season. He got 128 FPL points with 15 bonus points, which is right up there amongst the very best in that position. Only the likes of Murillo scored more bonus points in the defensive line. He got 2 goals and 1 assist, and Aina won't give you that many attacking returns, and I did highlight this multiple times last season. In fact, I think he only had 2 to 4 shots on target in the previous campaign, so I think that isn't sustainable whatsoever, but from time to time he can give you something, and if he can couple a goal or an assist with a clean sheet and defensive contributions, then Aina would produce a massive return, but he pales in comparison to Milenkovic and Murillo when it comes to defensive contributions, and that's why both of them are priced at 0.5 million more, and they also are ranked higher on this list. Moving on to the next defender though, Lacroix was another solid option when it comes to defensive contributions, and that should be heavily considered when choosing your midfielders and defenders, particularly those cheaper options in the midfield. And here, most of them will be priced at 5 to 5.5 million, but with 1 goal and 2 assists, he comes in at only 0.8% ownership, which makes him a massive differential. And I think that family and price tag is fairly decent actually, with 114 FPL points. His XG was also over 3, which is quite high for a centre-back, but the opening fixtures are tough on paper, facing Chelsea away, Nottingham Forest at home, and Aston Villa away. Then it's Sunderland at home, and it does get better longer term, but the opening 3 is where you'd probably want to avoid Lacroix, at least on paper. I think with tougher fixtures this season, you can still start your defenders and get more defensive contribution points as your centre-backs or full-backs are getting more tackles, clearances and blocks, and that really helps them get the additional 2 points for defensive contributions in a particular match. So that's why Lacroix is still viable from Game Week 1 onwards, and we should maybe rethink our approach when it comes to selecting defenders and players in general in Fantasy Premier League this season. Now going on to another option, t-Nouri, completely different because he won't get as many defensive contributions as Lacroix or the other options I've just discussed, but he will give you more attacking threat with 4 goals and 7 fantasy assists. He also made 46 key passes for Wolves last season, and as a summer signing for Man City, he could add a lot of goals and assists from that position, and he can play multiple positions actually for the Citizens. His ownership is extremely high at 28%, the highest of any defender covered so far, and his price tag is 6 million. But Man City's fixtures are quite appealing, starting with Wolves away, so he will face his former club from the get-go. Then it's Tottenham at home, Brighton away, and Man United at home. 125 FPL points is decent, and t-Nouri typically has a lot of injury problems, but that wasn't the case last season, and he started 37 games for Wolves, and he had a solid Club World Cup campaign for Manchester City, which I also covered on this channel. He's not the highest ranked Man City defender though, and there is one option I think that is slightly better in Gvardiol, assuming that he still starts 35 plus Premier League games as he did in the previous campaign, because I think he can also mix the attacking threat, although not to the same extent as t-Nouri, but also with defensive contributions, and that would make him an even more solid choice, and he can play centre-back and also on the left-hand side, but t-Nouri should be the first choice now in that particular position. So with 5 goals and no assists, Gvardiol always offers attacking threat, and in the previous campaign, so when he started his Man City career, he ended that campaign particularly strongly, and he scored some crucial goals for Man City as he helped them lift the Premier League title, and 40 shots is still very solid for a left back at the time, but I think Gvardiol will play more often in centre half, and we saw that towards the end of last season with Nico O'Reilly getting plenty of game time on the left-hand side. But Gvardiol is also priced at 6 million. His ownership is significantly lower. Let me know down in the comment section below, would you rank Gvardiol or t-Nouri higher? Based on the ownership figures and also the popularity of these assets, I think t-Nouri would be the people's choice, but I still think Gvardiol, if he gets the minutes and isn't rotated as often as he was in the Club World Cup, he can be a solid option for Man City and give you multiple avenues in terms of points with goals, assists, defensive contributions, and of course, the clean sheets will come there for Manchester City. Next up though is Collins, who is an absolute machine when it comes to defensive contributions. He got 34 points last season, so that would have taken his tally from 127 all the way through to 161, despite the fact that Brentford only kept 8 clean sheets while Collins was in the side. And when was that? In every single Premier League game, because he played every minute available, 38 games out of 38. He was an absolute machine there for the Bees, and he'll be very crucial in navigating this period because Brentford are losing so many key players and their manager, which I've heavily discussed in my recent videos. Their opening fixtures are decent, especially Sunderland away in Game Week 3. You've got some tough ones in there like Chelsea, but I think Collins can still give you a decent return in such matches with defensive contributions in mind. But also, if you can mix a clean sheet in there, I think Collins can give you 7 to 10 points quite regularly actually, so keep an eye out for Collins. It all depends, I think, on the clean sheet potential if Brentford can shore things up at the back. But irrespective of how many clean sheets they keep, whether it's 10 plus or just 7 to 8 again, I think Collins can still give you 140 plus FPL points quite comfortably. Now let's cover another defence in Daniel Munoz and Crystal Palace. He's going to be a different type of option with goals and assist potential, but he can get some defensive contribution points too. I think he's quite underrated with that particular metric, and the XGI, which means expected goal involvements, was 8.62 in the Premier League alone. His ownership is 9.4%, and he definitely warrants that 5.5 million price tag, but I do prefer Le Creux in terms of the opening fixtures against the tougher sides. Daniel Munoz, though, will always be the more exciting pick because he can give you a goal or assist at any given time. He bombs forward and gets into the box so often, with over 30 shots inside the box last season, so I think the Colombian is still a solid option at right wing back for Crystal Palace, and they've got different options to cover their defensive line, with Dean Henderson in goal at 5 million being extremely viable. You've also got Mark Gay, if he stays at the club, at 4.5 million, which saves you a little bit of money, and even Chris Richards is decent, but the standouts for me are Le Creux and Daniel Munoz in that defensive line. Now let's go on to Frimpong, the summer signing. You might argue he's ranked too low on this list and he should be ranked much higher. I completely get that, but I think Bradley could get some game time off him, particularly at the beginning of the season, and pre-season might be very important in terms of determining how Liverpool start off in Game Week 1, and the opening fixtures aren't great, for the first 3 game weeks at least. Then it gets much better, with Burnley away marking a fixture swing for the Premier League champions. Frimpong got 5 goals and 6 assists in the Bundesliga last season, and I covered UCL Fantasy. He got 5 assists in that competition as well, with 17 goal contributions across all competitions, and that's why his ownership is extremely high at 29.2%, irrespective of his 6 million price tag. I do prefer Milos Kerkez though. There is that debate now about which Liverpool fullback to go for. I just think Kerkez is actually more nailed on, even though at this moment in time there is still Robertson and Tsimikas at the club who can compete for a few starts here and there, and I think both of them will get rest from time to time, whilst Virgil van Dijk will start 35 plus Premier League games. A lot depends on how things go in the Premier League and the context. Could they rotate in certain matches? But I think Van Dijk is the safest entry point in that Liverpool defence, but Frimpong might be the most exciting. Coming in at number 8 is Murillo, who was an absolute beast last season. He got 130 FPL points and 38 defensive contribution points, which is incredible. That would have actually made him the second highest scoring defender last season with 168 overall. He got 2 goals and no assists, but I think he can add a few more goals to his tally, and his ownership is only 2.9%, and Nottingham Forest have solid long-term fixtures, so you can definitely cover their defence with the likes of Murillo, but he does come in at 5.5 million, so he is a premium now, and at 0.5 million more, you can cover an Arsenal, Man City or Liverpool defender instead, and there's also Mark Cucurella to add to the mix. But I have ranked his teammate Milenkovic slightly higher, and he got 145 FPL points as a kind of baseline score, but also 26 defensive contribution points, and those two were the two highest scoring defenders last season with this new system implemented now, and his ownership is even higher at 6.7% with 5 goals and 2 assists. That's what he'll add over Murillo. He has even more attacking threat in terms of XG, big chances, shots in the box. He's going to be much more appealing in that regard and maybe more exciting as well. But Forest have so many ways of covering that defence with Sells and goal, who only cost 5 million. You've got Nico Williams and Aina, both at 5 million, and 3 of them have made it into this list, of course, and Milenkovic is the very best of the lot. You've got West Ham at home in Game Week 3, which is quite appealing. Arsenal away looks quite tough, but Milenkovic could still give you defensive contribution points in such a fixture, and the same definitely applies to Murillo, who is even better when it comes to DEFCON. Can we even say that? Let's wait and see. Tarkowski narrowly misses out though on the top 5. He comes in at number 6, and he was an absolute beast when it comes to defensive contributions with 44 points based on his actions last season with clearances, blocks, tackles, etc., and 105 points as his baseline score. So I think this new system will transform these Everton defenders, and that's why they come in at such a hefty price tag of 5.5 million, and his ownership is still quite low, so he classes as a differential with 4.9% ownership, and the fixtures are good. Tarkowski's high scoring potential is there. You've also got the defensive contributions, and the clean sheets are always something that Everton will prioritise, even under David Moyes. But there has been a decline in the clean sheet potential. I think with Sean Dyche, the defensive line was more prioritised with the structure and organisation, trying to keep more clean sheets. And under David Moyes, he's unlocked a bit more attacking potential at the cost of conceding more chances in the process. But Tarkowski has remained a viable option throughout, and next season I think Everton can keep 10 clean sheets or more. You've got the likes of Tarkowski who can give you multiple defensive contribution points, and if he can stay fit and play 35 plus Premier League games, I think over 40 defensive contribution points is on the cards once again. But in the top 5, I've gone for William Saliba, who can give you those defensive contribution points and the odd goal here and there, but he pales in comparison to Gabriel and a few other defenders on this list in terms of goal contributions and also the attacking potential. But Saliba can still work on that part of his game. He's still really young and his potential is through the roof, to be honest. He got 130 points last season. The bulk of them, of course, will come from the clean sheets, and you could definitely say the same for any defender. But I think Saliba does rely on that more than anything else. But Arsenal could keep the most clean sheets once again, as they have done in the previous 2 seasons. And Saliba typically plays the vast majority of those minutes. So if he stays fit, I think Saliba will give you 140 plus points, maybe even going to 160 and beyond. But it all depends on Arsenal's clean sheet potential. I think that has reduced over the last year or so, and we have seen a slight regression there. But in pre-season, they've been looking good so far, and I think they've definitely got a lot of things to iron out and details to really focus on. And new signings like Gyökeres and Zubimendi will really help Arsenal to control multiple areas and also put the pressure on the opposition. But Saliba was incredible against AC Milan. It's just a friendly, but I think Saliba has definitely gone up another level, and he can definitely have an even better campaign next season. The bad thing about Arsenal, though, is the opening fixtures. You've got Leeds at home in Game Week 2, but the rest looks absolutely terrible. Man United away in Game Week 1. Yes, they were poor last season, but United is always a tough place to go for Arsenal. Liverpool away in Game Week 3 is the most difficult fixture you can ask for. Then it's Nottingham Forest at home, Newcastle away, and Man City at home. But Arsenal can keep clean sheets in those matches, and that shouldn't put you off them entirely. So having a Saliba or Gabriel in there is still a viable choice. You've also got David Wright in goal to save you 0.5 million in the process. The likes of Durin Timber and Lewis Skelly should be first choice in that defensive line. They also come in at 5.5 million. But is Saliba worth the extra 0.5? I believe so, because with bonus points, he's arguably the best Arsenal defender of the lot. And then you've got Gabriel with the attacking potential and defensive contributions. But Milos Kerkez comes in at number 4, just narrowly missing out on the podium. He got 2 goals and 6 assists for Bournemouth last season with 8 big chances created. And the XA, expected assist figure, was quite low, so there was an overperformance there. But with better quality finishers around him at Liverpool, I think he can give similar numbers, if not better, this time round. So it wouldn't surprise me if Kerkez got 10 plus fantasy assists like Robinson, for example, who didn't even make it into the top 20 of this list. But Kerkez has a 6 million price tag. His ownership is also dipping a little bit, so it's 14.4% at the time of this recording, but a few days ago it was around 17 to 18%. So people are tinkering with their squads, and these ownership figures are volatile. But he got 134 points for the Cherries last season, and I could see him getting 160 to 180 points in this season. It all depends on his starts and how many minutes he gets. Does he get subbed off early? That's something we're going to find out in pre-season and also when the Premier League campaign starts. But that's one of my concerns with him and Frimpong. It can work to your advantage when he is subbed off around 60-65 minutes like Trent was last season on a few occasions, and then Liverpool concede after that substitution happens. So you've got the clean sheet banked in with Kirkes, but the others like Van Dijk failed to keep on as a result. But conversely, it could go against you if he is subbed off just before 60 minutes. Is that a major concern for you with Kirkes and Frimpong? Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and which one would you prefer to cover that Liverpool defence and also having the attacking potential to boot for one of the best sides across Europe. But at number 3, I've gone for Cucurella, and this was a very close one because you could definitely make a case for the likes of Milenkovic, Murillo, Saliba and Kirkes being higher, but I think Cucurella will have an even better season, and in recent months he's been bombing forward for Chelsea. He can play different roles, so sometimes he's asked to kind of sit back a little bit more and allow Gusto or James to bomb forward on the right, and recently we've seen a system where James is in the midfield with Caicedo, Enzo Fernandez plays as the attacking midfielder, then you've got Pedro Neto and Palmer on the wings, and Malo Gusto is the right back with more license to bomb forward. But Cucurella had a solid Club World Cup tournament. He made a goal line clearance, and that will be very helpful in terms of the bonus points. That has been a major change in that system, where instead of getting 3 BPS for a goal line clearance, you now get up to 9 for that particular action. It's also not too surprising to see Cucurella have such high ownership at over 20%, but his price tag is 6 million, and I think that's something we were expecting at around 5.5 to 6 million anyway. And Chelsea ended the last season strongly, finishing in the top 4. They won the Conference League and the Club World Cup, so the perception of Chelsea has changed in recent months, and Cucurella has started virtually every single game in those competitions with 5 goals and 2 assists in the Premier League alone, with 14 bonus points on top of it. So I think his scoring potential is going to be much higher than Colwill and the other options, which is why he's priced significantly higher, and I think he's worth the extra millions, and Chelsea's opening fixtures are solid enough to justify that sort of investment in the defensive line, and going for Cucurella over the Arsenal defenders for the time being, and also compared to some of the Liverpool options you have on offer. 133 FPL points, I think that could easily be 150 plus with defensive contributions. Then you add even more goals and assists, which I think Cucurella can do, and I think Cucurella could be one of the highest scoring defenders in FPL next season. He can play as a centre-back at times, especially in a back-three system, but primarily he will be a left-back, and he's going to bomb forward in most of those games. But whatever role Cucurella is asked to do, he's going to do it to a decent level, and he is one of the best left-backs in the country. But at number 2, I've gone for Virgil van Dijk, and he could easily be number 1, but I think coupling his goals with the clean sheets and defensive contributions, Van Dijk could get to 200 FPL points or thereabouts. It will be tough for defenders, even with this new system implemented, to reach that sort of figure. That's really left for the midfielders and forwards, but they are going to get closer now, and Van Dijk will be one of the main beneficiaries of this new system. He got 3 goals, 1 assist, 27 shots and 143 FPL points last season with 17.7% ownership. He comes in at 6 million, the same as Frimpong and Kirkes, but he'll get more starts. I think he'll also score more goals than Kirkes. Maybe Frimpong, that's another debate in of itself, but I think having that security of minutes is such an important factor when buying a premium defender, and both Van Dijk and Cucurella have that over the Liverpool fullbacks, in my opinion, because they still have decent depth at left back and right back at Liverpool. So that's another element to consider when selecting your team. But Van Dijk is a set and forget option, and even against Bournemouth, Newcastle and Arsenal, he can give you solid returns in each match with defensive contributions and the odd goal here and there. He has scored some crucial goals for Liverpool over the years. And at number 1, it might surprise you or be slightly contentious, but I think Gabriel, if he stays fit, can be the best defender in Fantasy Premier League next season. To begin this campaign, he might not be the very best option because Arsenal's opening 6 fixtures are quite tough on paper, but I think beyond that, from Game Week 7 onwards, Gabriel could be one of the first names on our team sheet, even if we wildcard in Game Week 7, for example, and his ownership is significantly high at 26.9%, despite the fact he missed the game against AC Milan and he felt a slight niggle, so Arteta didn't want to risk him, but he should be available come Game Week 1 as long as there are no setbacks or other issues that arise. He got 3 goals and 2 fantasy assists, which is quite low actually compared to the perception of Gabriel scoring in virtually every single game week for a defender. But he also did this in UCL fantasy, and his scoring potential was so high with defensive contributions, goals, and the clean sheets that Arsenal will keep. And you would expect Arsenal to be at least top or second, I'd say, in terms of having the most clean sheets and trying to win the Golden Glove for a 3rd successive season for David Raya. But 117 FPL points is quite low for Gabriel, and that's because he got injured in March and missed a couple of months towards the end of last season. But the 6 million price tag is still justified. Game week 2 against Leeds at home is a perfect fixture for the likes of Gabriel, and even in the difficult games like Liverpool away, he has scored at Anfield before. So while it might not be a fixture that you're quite keen on, Gabriel can still deliver a return out of nowhere. He also scored at the Etihad, he has scored at Stamford Bridge and all of the big stadiums except for, I think, Old Trafford. That is the last one he has to tick along. Maybe he does it in Game Week 1, hopefully that is the case. But Gabriel is going to be right up there amongst the best defenders. Whether you think he's 1st, 2nd, 3rd or lower, let me know down in the comment section below. But I think ultimately an Arsenal defender should be in the top 5, and Gabriel is the best of the bunch. He had 8 big chances, 22 shots, 14 key passes, very solid numbers for a defender, and I think these can only improve next season with even more appearances. He got 28 in the previous campaign. This could easily get to 38 despite the signing of Mosquera, who can fill in from time to time. You've also got Kivior, who is the more natural Gabriel replacement. Arsenal's depth is quite stacked in that defensive line, but the likes of Gabriel and Saliba, when fit, will play 35 plus Premier League games. That could change slightly this season if Arsenal want to rotate more and focus on other cup competitions and have that sort of balance, so the likes of Gabriel don't get injured, because Arsenal had too many last season and they need to avoid such an injury crisis to really compete on all fronts in the upcoming campaign. So there could be a slight change to how Gabriel is perceived, and he might get the odd kind of benching here and there. We don't have that sort of problem with Van Dijk, I think, or potential issue, so it will be very intriguing to monitor over the next season. But Gabriel is still one of the best defenders in FPL. If you're still unsure about defensive contributions and how they work, then check out my key changes to FPL video where I discuss AFCON transfers, having more chips, tweaks to the bonus point system, and much more. The main beneficiaries of this new system could vary this season, but Tarkowski, Murillo, Milenkovic, Caicedo, Elliot Anderson are some of the main names, of course, in the defence and midfield that would have benefited from the system last season. And in terms of the most expensive defenders in Fantasy Premier League, they are all priced at 6 million. We have no Trent Alexander-Arnolds coming in at 7.5. So Cucurella, Gvardiol, t-Nouri, Frimpong, Gabriel, Saliba, Robertson, Kirkes, and Van Dijk, they all come in at 6 million. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Who is your favourite from these options, and who are you going to start Game Week 1 with? Because maybe Gabriel is your number 1 pick, but you think Arsenal's opening fixtures are bad enough where you want to avoid having that sort of coverage until Game Week 7, for example. But I think with defensive contributions, you might benefit more from that system in the tougher games like Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal away. So keep that in mind and maybe rethink your approach a little bit when it comes to selecting defenders and midfielders in Fantasy Premier League this season. Thank you very much for watching this video and listening to this podcast. If you enjoyed it or found it insightful, then like this video, subscribe to my channel, and also the notification bell so you're always up to date with my content, whether it's FPL, UCL Fantasy, or a different fantasy game I cover like the Club World Cup. Follow me on X, Instagram, Blue Sky, DylanRCM, and check all the links in the description for my Patreon and the championships, for links to my videos, amongst many other perks. The Discord server, FPL League, and Spotify can also be found in the description. I'll see you very soon for more FPL videos and live streams, and that includes the Game Week 1 deadline stream in less than a month's time.